going to try and bring it back to the normal Facebook.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah, so it's live on Facebook. I believe that we may be live on Facebook. So I just want to take this opportunity for anybody who is out there watching, because we actually can't see who's watching via Zoom actually. So I will try and pop onto my Facebook every now and then and see if I can sort of spot for any questions that may be coming through. But I do want to take this opportunity to introduce Marianna, who was our case study for the depigmentation Cosmelan procedure that we did back just before lockdown, actually. So literally, I think we just about scraped it in there, which was quite cool, before we actually had to shut the doors for the clinic for quite a while. So thank you for joining me tonight, Marianna. It's really great that you could come along and spend a little bit of time chatting with people and telling people what this procedure is about, because there's quite a lot of interest in it actually, and I think there's a lot of wow factors going on when people saw your skin. And you've just explained to me tonight before we came on the call that you're actually now without makeup.
Yeah, I am. I'm excited to be able to talk about it actually, because the results are outstanding, and my family and friends are all really impressed. The change that they can see. So yeah, and that's thanks to the Cosmelan. And yet I'm not wearing any makeup at all, and there's no way I probably would have done that pre Cosmelan. So yeah, pleasure to be here.
No, because I've known you for quite a long time actually, and I know that you would have really struggled to have probably come on this sort of call without makeup on at one point, wouldn't you?
Definitely. No, so, yeah, the outcome is brilliant.
Fantastic. So let's start, because I've had a few little sort of questions sort of either sent through, or people have just been asking me or emailing me about certain things when they've seen this go up over the last week or so. So I've had a few questions that have sort of been popped over to me. So I think the best bet is to probably start at the beginning, and I'll do a little bit of explaining a little bit to begin with about what the steps are that's involved in the Cosmelan procedure and what it's for those people who haven't seen anything. And then obviously maybe you can do a bit of explanation about how it felt and, you know, what people could expect by having this procedure done.
Of course.
So I'll start with obviously the steps that are involved. So the Cosmelan procedure is for people who have got a melasma type of pigmentation on their skin. So it's not for everybody. If you've got light pigmentation, it wouldn't necessarily be for you. There's other options that we can, you know, sort of look at and address, not necessarily Cosmelan. But if you've got that sort of melasma type pigmentation that's sort of all over your face from sun damage or hormones, those types of conditions, then Cosmelan is just brilliant, because it does, although it is classed as a superficial peel, it actually carries on working, so because of the home care program. And what I have done quite a bit of explaining in about on some of my posts over the last week have been about how when you're doing, how can I explain it? When you're actually re-educating a skin so that it stops producing pigmentation going forward, so that you can try and actually keep the results as long term, then it does take 9 to 12 months to go through that. And as you know, Marianna, you're still working, you know, very intently with your home care in regards to Cosmelan. So it does involve a prep kit that's given to the client a couple of weeks at least before the procedure has taken place. Marianna was using that quite intently at home. So there's like a peel booster in particular that just gets the skin used to some mild exfoliation. So it does prep it properly for when we actually do the peeling procedures. We then do a milder peeling procedure 2 days before the actual Cosmelan procedure itself. Again, just prep the skin, make sure that it's just completely ready for it. And then the actual Cosmelan procedure, as Marianna can explain, is actually the most simplest thing in the world, because all we're actually doing is putting on a mask. And you have to come into the clinic, we clean the face, put the mask on, and then we send you home. And then pretty much it's down to you, but obviously with our help and guidance and care to make sure that you're doing things properly. So from that point on, Marianna, perhaps you could actually explain to anybody who's watching us tonight what it was like actually from the point of maybe having the mask on and what people could expect.
Yes, so I went in bright and breezy to the clinic in the morning because the mask has to be worn anywhere between 8 and 12 hours. And Sarah and her team are able to advise you on how long the mask needs to stay on. And I was advised that mine needed to stay on for 10 hours. So in order to fit that into the day, I went into the clinic bright and breezy to have that popped on. And then, if anything, it was just a little bit of a dull day. Make sure you've got a good bank of Netflix and puzzles stocked up, because that's 10 hours where you're in the house. So, but it felt really comfortable. There was no sort of sensation to talk of at all while the mask was on. It just sort of goes kind of slightly crispy, a little bit like a mud mask, really. So it kind of slowly dries out on the face, as you'd expect. So it looks a little bit like you're wearing a mud mask, and there's no sort of discomfort or otherwise while it's on. And then after 10 hours, I was given some face wash provided beforehand to gently wash it off. And it was at that point that I did start to feel some discomfort. So it was only once I started washing it off that I felt some discomfort. But I could see that immediately that it started working. My face had definitely already had some skin being removed or peeling. And then overnight was fine. The next morning, I did have a little bit of a mild inflammatory response. So a little bit like having some sunburn, really, but on my face. So there was some redness and some discomfort, but that only lasted one day. And then, I just had to remain hydrated and take it easy. So I already knew from Sarah and her team that I had to sort of, the following day was also going to be a day where I needed to stay in the house and be completely away from the sun. And actually, really, you kind of need to plan for that for a few days, really. So the day it was on was fine. The day after, like I say, a little bit of an inflammatory response. But the day after that, so sort of 24 to 48 hours later, I started to feel better. And then immediately the satisfaction of the skin peeling off just constantly. Don't bother cleaning your house for a week or two, because you just shed skin. It's like the worst dandruff you've ever had. But it's an incredibly satisfying experience, because with all that peeling, that all the pigmentation, you can see that the skin coming off is pigmented, and you can see that the skin underneath is clear. So it's a bit disgusting, but it's just so satisfying that it really doesn't matter. And then, the peeling and the swelling just sort of lessens over time. And then Sarah and her team ask you to sort of start the Cosmelan 2, which is the next part of the program, which I don't know if you want to talk about that bit, Sarah.
That is part of the program. It says the Cosmelan 2 is another cream that actually just continues the Cosmelan process. So it continues the exfoliation process over the next 9 to 12 months. Now, obviously, in the beginning, you were applying it, 3 times a day, weren't you, for the first month? So obviously, the exfoliation process was much greater. Obviously, A, having had the mask, and B, applying a Cosmelan 2 exfoliation cream quite intently 3 times a day. Over the period of the next few months, we start to drop that usage of Cosmelan 2 off. So you're only using it once a day or so now, aren't you? So, and then you can use it a little bit more on some stubborn areas if needed, but you're only using it once a day. So I know you said to me the other day you didn't really know that you felt like it was necessarily doing anything anymore, but it's a much lighter exfoliation effect that you're going to be getting, that it's now not going to get to the point where you would notice it quite as intently as obviously what it was in that first month or two, when your skin obviously was shedding a lot and felt a little bit uncomfortable at times.
So that is something to be conscious of, is that when applying the Cosmelan 2 3 times a day for the first few weeks, you are likely to, well, I mean, I guess everybody's different. I experienced some discomfort when applying the Cosmelan 2 initially, just because your skin is still really sensitive from the initial peel, and that Cosmelan 2 is still exfoliating. It is really important to stay, keep the moisturization levels up. And again, Sarah and her team were able to advise me on what products to use and how to use them to ensure that I was staying hydrated on my face, and that really helped. So you will continue to see some peeling for quite some time. I was working from home at the time, so it was fine. But that is just something to be conscious of, is that for a few weeks you will see peeling. So you need to kind of be prepared for that in terms of your interactions with other people. I felt it was fine to see people I knew and explain why I looked the way I looked. But actually as well, as long as you're keeping it hydrated, then it's not so visible after the first week or so anyway.
Unfortunately or unfortunately, whichever way around we want to look at it, we went into lockdown pretty soon after that anyway. So yeah. So yeah, it was sort of something that was probably quite good timing in that sort of aspect. Not great for the world, clearly. Yeah, that was sort of threw up something else. So somebody just paid you a nice compliment on Facebook. I was just trying to see if I could get any comments up. Somebody called Jeff, I think, possibly knows you, says you're looking good, Mazza.
No, thanks, Jeff.
So yeah, hey, Maz, looking really well. I'm not really sure how much more we really need to go into, to be perfectly honest. I think it was just more to find out how you found the procedure, you know, what people can expect, which I feel like we've done, you know, fairly thoroughly. I think we could just maybe just say, is there anyone not suitable for the treatment? And actually, there was something that I just thought of that I think is really important, is you really do need to protect your skin during hot months. And obviously that just reminded me of lockdown, thinking, crikey, you know, it was really hot during lockdown. So how do you manage that? Tell us how you actually managed to protect your skin during lockdown.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There are probably other people out there like me who like to spend a lot of time outdoors, and I'm a really outdoorsy person, so which is obviously part of the reason my skin is pigmented to begin with, but it's also something that caused me some trepidation to begin with as well, and whether this was suitable for me. I just had to be super careful, and I still have to be. That is something that you will have to continue, not just for the year, but for long term, really, if you want the results to be maintained. So, you know, after we were allowed out again, I have spent the summer walking, running, and on the water on my stand-up paddleboard. I have to wear a factor 130 SPF. Again, Sarah's clinic is able to provide you with those products. And then at first I was wearing a straw hat, a really good straw hat that I had, but I realized probably that still wasn't providing me 100% UV protection. So I went online and bought a really wide rimmed UV blocking hat. And obviously I can't wear that while I'm running, so I also bought myself a rather sexy sun visor as well for while I'm running. And you know, there are times of the day obviously when the hat isn't that useful if the sun's low, but if you're wearing your SPF all the time, then even when it's low, you've got a good degree of protection, and that SPF needs to be going on every couple of hours.
I was about to say that.
So I'm quite religious with that, and Sarah and I have been out for walks during lockdown. If it's been an incredibly sunny day, I've actually said to Sarah, I'm actually going to go for an hour and a half today, not 2 hours. So I'm like there, because, you know, I've spent a decent proportion of money on this and gone through, 10 hours of treatment and all the rest of it and all of the peeling. And I'm so happy with the results. I don't then want to undo that because I've forgotten to put my SPF on or couldn't be bothered to wear a hat. So that is something that is ongoing, and it's been an incredibly hot summer, and despite that, my skin stayed good. There are a couple of areas, like Sarah said in one of her posts, where the pigmentation is, there's a little bit of residual pigmentation, but we're going to try some more products on that, some different products. I'm continuing with the Cosmelan T, and then I'm going to try some more products that hopefully will retrain some of these melanocyte cells down here and a little bit up here that I have. But I just wanted to clarify that hasn't come back. That just is something we need to continue working on from the original pigmentation. So if you're wearing the SPF and you're wearing a really good hat, then you can be outdoors, you can spend time in the sunshine. But, again, I would avoid I never am somebody to sit and cook in the sun for 5 hours, but I would happily go for a long walk for 5 hours in the sun. So yeah, it's just about being careful and managing it.
Exactly. So no, it's good that you managed to be quite so strict with it, which was great. And as you said, just to reiterate, it really is important actually that SPF is reapplied every couple of hours. And that's the same with any SPF. So just a little bit of education for anybody watching tonight. Please reapply your SPF. It should be reapplied every couple of hours. It does, the formulations, particularly in chemical sunscreens, do change after a couple of hours. So you don't just find it doesn't have the same protection power anymore. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. So let's just talk briefly, actually, about, the residual pigmentation, actually. I think it's a really good sort of subject to bring up because I think what people need to be aware of is that Cosmelan will only probably get rid of maybe 80 to 90% of pigmentation. It's not going to necessarily get rid of 100% of pigmentation, and that's where we've got to manage expectations. It's really important that anybody watching, we manage your expectations about what we're going to achieve. But if anybody's interested and wants to go back and look at Marianna's before pictures in particular, do go, scroll back, look at the before and afters. So it's actually really a staggering result. But as Marianna mentioned, there is some residual pigmentation just at the side a little bit, just across the forehead. So we changed some of the products over, some of our home care to work with some products. I don't want to blind people with names and things like that, but ferulic acid, which is particularly a really good antioxidant, and ferulic acid actually protects your skin. So you put that on in the morning, and it protects your skin from UV traumas during the day. So even from your computer screens and things like that. So you will just have that ongoing protection during the day. And then there's other products that we're incorporating in at a higher level, which are called tyrosinase inhibitors. And tyrosinase is an enzyme that actually increases the melanin coming to the skin. It just increases the activity. So if we actually inhibit the enzyme activity, therefore we actually inhibit the color of the melanin coming up to the surface of the skin. So we're working with that sort of type of ingredient to actually help to improve the other areas. And then over the next month or so, we're probably going to look to introduce some needling treatment. And needling, again, stimulates the fibroblasts lower down the skin. We can also, with that, it makes really nice big channels for a depigmentating sort of solution, which has got your tyrosinase inhibitors and other antioxidants in there, which will help to inhibit the melanin activity, and the same across the forehead. And we can also work with some other peels as well, some milder peels than obviously what we would have used with Cosmelan. So there's plenty of scope, and what people need to realise is that there's two types of pigmentation. There's very much what we call epidermal pigmentation and dermal pigmentation. Epidermal pigmentation is really quite relatively simple to get rid of because it is in those upper layers, and we can work with those very, very quickly and easily. What happens, obviously, over a longer period of time is that the dermal pigmentation starts to come up to the surface. So we've got rid of all your epidermal pigmentation, We're now working with that much deeper dermal pigmentation, but which is actually probably up more in the epidermal layers. So it's now easier for us to treat those. So yeah, that's what we're going to be aiming to do. So perhaps at the end of the 12 months, and we've done a little bit more treatment, it might be quite nice to come back on and do another chat like this and actually sort of see how you found with the additional products and the additional treatments that we're going to look at doing. But I mean, I have to say it's been an absolutely staggering result. Oh, I've lost your voice, Marianna. Yeah, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted to avoid any feedback. I love that post that you put up of Louise's, which was like, whatever you paid, it was worth it. Effing hell, it was amazing. I love that post.
I debated about that post for a little while, actually, just because of the language, but then I decided that it actually had to be real. So, and a couple of my team went, oh, I don't know if you should have put that. And I was like, well, I didn't really want to not show the post as it was, which was real. And everyone uses bad language, so yeah. And I just thought it was really poignant to actually get the point across about how people were noticing the changes, which is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our live tonight, Marianna. That was absolutely brilliant. I hope that people have found this really useful. Please keep the questions coming. Happy to answer any more, and I'm sure I can throw them at Marianna if anybody's got any. I'm sorry, I can't really, as I say, see on Zoom when any questions are coming through. But as I say, if you see anything, if anything resonates and you think you'd like some more information, anything we can help you with, then give us a shout. But thank you so much for coming on tonight, Marianna. That's been great.
Thanks for all your help, Sarah. Take care.
See you soon. Take care. Bye. Bye.